so I'm Steve Ford, the Chief Executive at Parkinson's UK.
What brought you to Parkinson's UK and where did you come from originally?
That's a really good question. I'd always worked for the health service. I was a general manager, chief exec in the NHS. So most recently I was, 12 years ago, I was a chief exec of a primary care trust. I think what happens, as we know, is the NHS kind of reorganises itself every 18 months, and I could see that the primary care trust that I was leading was going to be merged with others. Would I get the job? I wasn't sure about that. So I thought, 20 years in the NHS, midway through my career, actually it would be really good to think about working in a charity. So just saw the advert actually. Didn't really know that much about Parkinson's at the time. I'd kind of managed some health services that were responsible for caring for people with Parkinson's, but my knowledge of the condition was very poor actually, but it looked a good job, and got it.
It's hard to imagine you having any other job. You fit it so well.
Yeah, I think there's some real similarities actually. I think when I was working in the health service, particularly most recently, it was setting up a primary care trust, a new organisation, trying to make sure it was kind of focused, building a team together, and I think it's been like that here. To be honest, when I joined the charity, the Parkinson's Disease Society, it was a really weird organisation, a really formal, bureaucratic organisation. I think people with Parkinson's hated the charity, and it was really tough. I remember after 3 months nearly leaving, just thinking, I don't know whether this is going to work out. But you get some good people around you and people who sort of share the same vision. I think you just talk to people with Parkinson's and you just hear that kind of passion and the drive and the need for change, and that really kind of gives you the fuel that you need to kind of drive the changes. And we're not there yet by any means, but hopefully on a process of transforming the organisation.
There seems to be some really exciting things happening at the moment, some of which I'm involved in, so I'm kind of aware of how exciting things are. But what are you kind of most excited about over the next kind of 12 months?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's lots of things that I think I could answer that. I suppose, we're talking about the kind of history here and where were we kind of 12 years ago. 12 years ago we were helping, I suppose we would say, we were here to, almost actually to help these poor people with Parkinson's. That sounds an awful thing to say, but that was almost the kind of, that no one would ever use those words, but that's how it kind of felt like. I think over the years, and certainly when we became Parkinson's UK, this kind of movement of people affected by Parkinson's who are together wanting to kind of drive change. And I think what's happened over the last few years is us having a position where we become leaders. So we can change the health service, we can drive the research process, we can use technology to enable people with Parkinson's to feel more a sense of control. And I think that's what I think is and that's where really challenges me, because my job has changed massively because we've taken on this much more of this sort of leadership role. So I think I'm really excited by the virtual biotech model and the way that we're doing more deals around that. We're putting more money into it next year, and it would just be so fantastic if some of these projects go through to the extent that a pharmaceutical company picks it up and starts doing clinical trials in the next 12, 18 months. That would be fantastic and a real sort of sign of success. I think some of the work you're doing, Emma, around the digital stuff, I think is really exciting, and I think no one else is doing this, and what could the potential be for new technologies to make a real difference in the lives of people. I think there's so much out there, and I'm just want us to pick up on it. I think one of the things that has just become on my radar just in the last 12 months really has been this whole kind of exercise thing. And I think as a charity we've really got into that. It kind of brought together the Excellence Network and all of the physios and providing a kind of framework around that, getting the Sport England bid where we can drive some kind of change. I think that if we can make a success of this, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Really
Definitely.
kind of inspiring, motivating, empowering the community to exercise more.
I think we've made a lot of really, definitely sort of in the time that I've been here, I've noticed it, and probably before, there's been some really sort of bold moves made towards sort of really stepping out and doing different things in digital and tech and the virtual biotech stuff. I think there's some really kind of brave moves, and actually that comes from you trusting people, I think, and kind of putting people in the right roles to kind of lead those things.
I think, I think when we, I can still remember this senior leadership away day where we were kind of reflecting on what had happened over the last few years, and in many ways, the charity had done really well. Our rebrand had led to higher profile. Our income had gone up. We were kind of winning awards. We were attracting really good people who wanted to work for the charity. But I just remember saying, okay, but in the last 5 years, actually, what's changed for people with Parkinson's? Parkinson's UK might have kind of grown, but actually, has there really been any difference in the life experience of people living with Parkinson's? And I think, recognising that the answer to that was no, and therefore it wasn't just about us as a charity continuing to do the same things and doing them well and doing them better. Actually, we needed to do different things. Just funding good research wouldn't necessarily lead to new treatments being seen in clinic. Just continuing to sort of lobby the health service wouldn't drive the kind of changes that people wanted to see. So that's why, the virtual biotech, the Excellence Network, the investment we're making in tech and digital, it was recognition that, that people with Parkinson's expect more and have been really demanding. And we're hearing those voices, and that's what kind of drives us.
What are you proudest of that you've sort of achieved here, or that the charity's achieved during your time here?
I think it is. I think there are lots of things. I think I think we've effectively sort of tripled in size over the 12 years. But I think fundamentally it comes down to this sense of becoming a movement of people affected by Parkinson's. I think and starting to have a kind of authenticity that I don't think we had before. I think, Emma, I remember you saying that once that you love the way Parkinson's UK talks about Parkinson's, because we use the kind of language that you would use. And that, it still chokes me up actually thinking about that, because we wouldn't have been able to say that a while back. And I think, if we are now an organisation that really involves people with Parkinson's in everything that we do, and therefore we're now speaking with confidence and authenticity and anger and all of the kind of the mixed emotions that the Parkinson's community have, then that to me is actually the most important thing, and it's because of that we can then go on and do all of the exciting things around research and the Excellence Network and everything else. So I think what I'm most proud of is this sense of becoming a movement of people affected by Parkinson's.
I think the great thing about it as well is the involvement of people with Parkinson's is very genuine and very, actually, it's not tokenistic in any way. And I think I was sort of worried about that coming into somewhere, that it would be, perceived that I was doing the role that I was doing because, I was someone that had Parkinson's and had sort of been in a TV documentary that was about tech. But actually, even just from sort of involving people in interviews of staff and things like that, I think it's all very... It's a really great way of doing things, and it's really sort of empowering of people with Parkinson's to be making decisions about their charity, which is it's really great.
I think so. We had a staff welcome day yesterday, and that's kind of delivered by people affected by Parkinson's, and it is so. And so I go along at the end of the day and just ask people for their feedback, and it's people just say, we are so inspired by the stories that we've heard, and we are determined now to involve people more in the work that we're doing, because that's so kind of such a powerful way of working. So it creates challenges. I think your point about it being kind of tokenistic, I think it can be, and we constantly need to be asking ourselves the question: are we really involving? Are we really listening? Or are we kind of going through the motions?
Final question. Is there anything you've learned about people with Parkinson's or the condition that surprised you the most over the period of time that you've been here?
Wow, that's a
tough question.
That's a really tough question. I mean, I mean, it sounds like a real kind of platitude to say this, or it sounds so obvious. But people affected by Parkinson's are the same as everybody else. People who had lives before they had Parkinson's, who achieved masses, and having Parkinson's. Yeah, it kind of messes that up, but it doesn't change any of that. I think. Yeah, just the kind of inspirational way that people kind of deal with that is what kind of drives me forward. I think in so many ways. So, I think when you've been in a charity for 12 years and you get to know people really well and you see the progression of the condition, that is something that you're constantly kind of reminded of, actually, that the kind of unrelenting nature of Parkinson's, I suppose, and that drives the kind of urgency, but it also means how we as a charity are there for everybody at every stage, and that the way people want to interact with the charity or receive services and support from the charity kind of changes over time as people's kind of needs change as well. So that bit about it's a bit of a cliche, but that sense of personalised support for people, what does that look like? And I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that kind of develops over the next few years with all the kind of digital approaches to that. How can we make sure that we are standing alongside someone living with Parkinson's and their family as they go through that kind of journey? That's what kind of inspires me, I think.